Howdo, ready for a bit of this? Oh, it's carving day! Right, so we're going to put a strip of carving in along here, and we're going to use a Celtic rope design, kind of Welsh Celtic stuff. That's what we're going to have. So with any carving that you ever want to do, you kind of want to sketch that out first, and sometimes you can sketch it straight onto the item that you're doing if it's a kind of freehand design. If it's something very geometrical like this, much better to just print it off. So I went on an internet, found this that we like, printed it off, and a few trial and errors to print it off at the right size. So that can be a little bit of a tricky thing. You go through a couple of sheets of paper trying to suss that out. So I've got this now to the right width. Now, one thing I have done is, can you see on these bottom edges, I've put a little mark, okay, because that curve isn't the same as that curve, so I need to make sure that they line up correctly. If I do that, then the in and out nature of this will be wrong. With that in mind, I'm going to chop off the end of one of those. There we go. So I've got a clean cut edge on the end of there, so that's probably going to sit something like that. I think I want it there. I think ta-da is the order of the day. So once you've got your pattern or your sketch or whatever it is that you're doing, it's in the right place, I always like to go around the entire lot with a little marking knife first. Break the fibres up. I could go in straight away with the chisels, and we're going to use the Dremel in a bit as well. I could go straight in with those, but the chances are that something's going to go wrong, that you'll get a fluffy edge, you'll get a bit that could chip off. Like we did carving the entire body out, that stop cut technique of sawing and chiseling in, you're guaranteed it's not going to go any further than that. This is exactly what this marking knife's going to do. On the sharper corners, you can have your knife pointing up a little bit, just helps you to get round the corner. On the straighter sections, you can lower it down a little bit. It's going to help you to keep it more in a straight line. It certainly helps if you're ambidextrous. Just means I don't need to move the work as much. If you find you just can't do it with both hands, which I think is the standard, to be honest, I think I'm a bit of a freak that I can do this with two hands. It just means you're going to need to either move yourself or turn your work around at each of these points. So I'm getting away with it. I can get to be lazy, which is really nice. Give it a try, see what happens. You never know, it might work well for you too. So you can see as I'm getting to this area where it's doubled up, obviously that's not glued, so I've gone through this first layer. I can actually take that section off now, so that's not going to cause me any problems, and we're back to going. Ow! Oh, well, that gets you forearms. But there we go, all scribed. We have clean lines. Now we need to make some holes. So what I'm going to do first is remove all these inner sections here, so that they're all down to the same depth, and that's the main reason for using something like a Dremel. It means I've got a set depth on there, so I know I've got the same depth all the way through the carve. So yes, it's going to remove some of the material, but we're still going to have to get in there with a chisel to clean it up. The main reason for this is more like a depth gauge than actually using it for the pattern itself. So So I've put some trusty masking tape blower on there to try and get rid of some of the dust as we work. Very noisy, but we can see it's made a nice hole. So all I need to do now is repeat that in every one of these gaps all the way through. I can try and take off as much as possible, but obviously because it's round I can't get in the corners. That's all going to need to be done with chisels, but it will mean that every one of these holes is at the correct depth. Done. Thankfully, it's nice quiet chisels from here on in. So, the first bit of chisel work I'm going to do is just grabbing a thin, this is a 6mm chisel, to just square off all these square sections that are in here. So obviously with the round router bit, it means I can get in there and literally just push down into the corners to take that and make that look nice and square. There we go, some nice clean crisp edges inside those holes. It was kind of like the carving equivalent of housekeeping really. Not particularly exciting, but makes life a little bit better in the long run. So time to get some carving chisels out. Now we've got a whole array of different carving chisels, mini palm chisels with gouges and V-shapes. We've got longer chisels that have double-edged knife things in, and obviously we've still got all the standard flat chisels that we've got through here. If you haven't noticed, I like chisels. But do you need all these fancy chisels to do any kind of carving? Well, for something like this, no you don't really, and I'll prove it. There you go. That is the very first thing I ever carved. And what did I use to carve that? I used a standard 1/2 inch, 12mm, standard woodworking chisel, not anything like as good a quality as that. It was purely sharpened with a belt sander. Nothing more than that, and we still made that. Now you can't complain at that, can you? So here's the golden rules with any kind of carving. We've said this before, carve downhill. Okay, now when you've got a flat surface like this, it's very easy to then think about downhill going in like that, which is absolutely true. However, we also have grain running in this direction, so we need to think downhill that way and that way as well. Let me show you what I mean. So let's imagine these plastic straws. Yes, I know plastic straws are illegal now because for some reason they don't get recycled in my recycling bin. They end up in some Indian Ocean somewhere. Tell me how that happens. Anywho, so imagine plastic straws. This is the grain of the wood. So as I want to cut a diagonal line through there, you can see as I go in like that, all I'm doing is pushing those straws on top of each other, compressing them, making them smoother and smoother. If I try cutting the other way, you can see instantly those straws want to separate. I'm pulling them apart. Even with a really sharp chisel, that's still going to want to happen. That's just the natural law of things. So if we think about going downhill on this side, automatically on this side of the straws, I'm going to have to go that way and not the same way. Does that make sense? So I've got to go down on that side and I've got to go up on that side, because that's how the grain wants to be cut to give us a nice crisp clean edge. So let's just do this straight path here for now. So I'm going to need to cut in that direction to make sure that those grains work with me Nothing bad's going to happen. Everything's going to be fine. And even if I dig in a little bit harder, all those fibres want to do is compress and stay smooth. But as soon as I want to do this side, I need to turn and come downhill this way. And basically, it's going like that until you've removed enough wood that you're happy. So the trick is then just to constantly think about grain direction, which way your blade needs to point. And then for me, along here on this geometrical pattern, it's making sure we've got the correct under versus over. So this one needs to go down to look underneath that one and pop back out the other side. And as long as I get rid of all the black, I know that then we're going to be looking at all of this stuff being underneath the nice flat resin that's going to cover the entire lot. Reach the end with one side done. So now I'm going to flip the guitar and do this edge the same way around, because I've got used to carving upwards like that. So why try and change tack when I can just turn the guitar around and do exactly the same thing all the way along the other side. And how bizarre that once you've done the top row and the bottom row, it leaves that weird T-shaped pattern all the way across. How bizarre. And with that, it's all carved out. Right, it's time to add some colour. So what we're going to do is, in the deep troughs inside here, we're going to have black on the bottom, and then the actual rope that's going to come through is going to be gold. Black and gold, very classy. Well, good morning folks. Paint is now completely dry, and there's one last thing I want to do before putting the resin in there, and that's just to tidy up the edges around the rope a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just carve into these areas a little bit to clean them up, but also to have a natural wood colour separation between that area and the black, in the same way that this really light coloured maple kind of separates off the neck from the body. I want to do a similar kind of thing with this. Now there's a number of different ways that we can do that. I think I'm probably going to go for a gouge like this and try this. The pointy areas are going to be a little bit of an issue, but we'll have a go. Either this, or I'm going to have to scoop from both sides and see what happens, but let's just give it a go and see what works. That's more better. Time for the resin then, hooray! I love this UV resin stuff. I'll put a link in the description to get this. Little bottles that pretty much last forever, pre-mixed, and all you need to do is put a UV lamp on, which comes with a kit, like a little nail bar kit. So I've topped up the holes, and now I'm just going to cook those off using the, like I say, the nail bar UV light. One-handed job, we like them. Right, so now that we've gone all the way along, before I then fill it up to level, I actually want to make sure that the guitar is level, because resin's a fluid. Well, what do we think? I think it's turned out really well. It actually looks a little bit like the rope is hovering inside that resin. I'm really rather pleased with that. If you want more carving tips and tricks, then check out this video. And then next time, the next video on this, we'll be sorting out the pickup cavities and the pots and the back cavities and the cover for that. Lots of stuff regarding the sound for the next episode. So make sure you click the subscribe button, ring that little notification bell thingamajig to get hold of that, and I'll see you soon. God bless.